Welcome to the deep dive. We're tearing into a stack of sources today, all circling around a phrase that sounds like something out of a historical drama. Let them eat cake.
It certainly does. You picture Marie Antoinette, right? Excess, disconnect. But our source material uses this phrase in a fascinatingly different context. It's looking at modern luxury, who's buying it, and why that world is far more complex and accessible than that historical image suggests.
Exactly. Our main guide is Pamela and Danzinger's book, Let Them Eat Cake, Marketing Luxury to the Masses as well. It takes this, provocative title and uses it as a lens to explore how luxury has fundamentally changed.
Yeah, it's a deep dive into how luxury is defined today, who the actual consumer base is, what motivates them, and what all this means for anyone trying to understand or participate in this market.
Think of this as your fast track to getting truly informed on a market that's shifted dramatically. We're here to unpack what luxury means now, beyond, the velvet rope.
Okay, let's dig in. And maybe the best place to start is pinning down when the shift from the old idea of luxury to the new really happened.
The sources point to a specific year, 1984. It might sound a bit arbitrary, but they position this as the official birth year of new luxury.
That's right. It marked a real contrast to the preceding years, like the small is beautiful kind of philosophy during the Carter administration. Post-1984, the economy was rebounding, there was pent-up demand, and what the source calls this go-go American consumerism kicked in with expanding wallets.
And this economic shift triggered a complete rethink of what luxury even was. The source contrasts old luxury, which was purely about the product, its intrinsic attributes, its status, its prestige.
Right, all about the object itself.
With new luxury.
And new luxury is the fundamental flip. It's defined not by the product, but by the consumer's perspective. It's about the experience of luxury, what it means to the individual. It's much more personal, subjective.
Which brings us back to that title, Let Them Eat Cake. In this context, it's not the historical, they're so out of touch, they don't care, people can't afford bread.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It's a metaphor for this very expansion.
Yeah, the spreading out of luxury.
Yes, it suggests that the cake, representing luxury, is now being offered in various forms to a much broader audience than just the traditional elite. It's saying, look, luxury isn't just for the few anymore. A taste is accessible to the masses as well.
So if it's not just about unattainable products for the super rich anymore, how do we even define luxury today? The sources, it's tricky.
It absolutely is. The book explicitly states it depends on whom you ask. You have the dictionary definitions, inessential but comfortable, expensive, sumptuous living, which are, still relevant.
Sure, the baseline.
But then you get the consumer perspective, like that great quote, luxury is more.
I like that. More.
Which gets to the heart of it and ties back to the Latin root, luxuria, meaning excess or the extras of life. It's about going beyond just the bare necessities.
And the source really expands on the dimensions of this modern definition. There are still the intrinsic features, quality, craftsmanship, that unique style. Brand reputation matters, of course.
But maybe the most revealing dimension is luxury defined simply as non-necessities. Anything you buy that you don't strictly need.
Regardless of price.
Regardless of its price point or brand, could be seen as a luxury from this personal perspective. That's a massive expansion of the concept right there.
That idea is really underscored by quotes from people in the industry, like Brian Maynard saying, true luxury today is being an expert at something, or that luxury is about personal transformation and reinvention.
What's so fascinating about that is how it completely detaches luxury from just physical goods.
Right.
And connects it to personal growth, skill building, or changing something about yourself. It becomes about aspiration and improvement, not just, acquisition.
So who is this person buying these things that range from a designer handbag to, say, a gardening class? Is it just the folks on Rodeo Drive?
The source immediately challenges that idea, arguing that anyone who perceives they are buying a luxury is a luxury consumer in that moment. This could be someone on a modest income, splurging on a premium coffee, or a high earner buying a yacht. It's the perception.
Okay, but for the sake of understanding the market, the source does rely on income-based demographics for their studies, right? They have segments.
They do. They break it down into near affluence, 75K, 99K income, affluence, 100K, 149K, and super affluence, 150K plus. Helps to analyze spending patterns.
And one statistic that really jumped out at me was that about 90% of today's affluence come from middle-class roots.
Isn't that something? This isn't just about inherited wealth. It's largely about upward mobility and earned income, people making their own way.
Wow, 90%. That's huge and really reinforces that the masses in marketing luxury to the masses as well aren't just accessing luxury, they are the new affluent base for it.
Exactly. And a big driver of this rising tide of affluence, particularly when the book was written, around 2005, was baby boomers.
Peak earning years.
Peak earning years? Many were empty nesters with significant discretionary income freed up from, raising families.
And looking ahead, the source saw millennials, born roughly 77 to 94, following a similar trajectory.
Yeah, poised for their own surge in affluence as they aged and moved through life stages, initially spending on fashion and tech, later maybe on homes and families, just like the boomers did.
When you look at spending differences, affluent households spend roughly double what typical households do across the board.
But the gap is widest in areas like education, home furnishings, and entertainment, those extra categories.
It's narrower in essentials like food and healthcare, and the source points out that affluents actually tend to save more than typical households too.
Which is another twist on the perception, right? It's not just reckless spending. There's often a balance with financial prudence.
So we know who's buying luxury, and it's a much broader base than we might have assumed. But why are they buying? Is it just about showing off, keeping up with the Joneses?
The source suggests that the underlying motivations aren't fundamentally different across income levels. It's more a matter of degree. And a key shared attitude is telling. Luxury doesn't always have to be the most expensive thing or the most exclusive brand.
That loops back to the subjective definition, the non-necessities idea.
It does. The book also gets into behavioral segmentation. Butterflies, cocooners, aspirers, exfluents. It highlights the butterflies as the most evolved, often turning away from obvious displays of wealth.
More internal.
Yeah, seeking meaning and self-expression instead, sometimes even grappling with the idea of having so much. It's complex.
That's a fascinating evolution. But the biggest revelation, the one that really seems to underpin this whole shift in the luxury market, it's about experiences, isn't it?
Absolutely. This is arguably the most significant takeaway from the sources. Consumers are finding the greatest satisfaction and happiness not from accumulating material goods, but from pursuing experiences.
How significant is that shift? Did the source back that up with data?
Oh, completely. The data shows a major swing. By 2003, services, which includes many experiences like travel and entertainment, accounted for almost 60% of total personal consumption spending.
Wow, 60%.
Yeah, from around 50% back in 1984, the very year the source identifies as the birth of new luxury. Spending on material goods dropped proportionally.
So, right as new luxury is born, consumers start spending less on things and more on doing. That feels counterintuitive to the old idea of luxury being about owning possessions.
It really is. And the source explains why experiences are more satisfying. Researchers suggest they are more central to building our identity, to the construction of the self, than physical possessions are.
Makes sense.
Owning a fancy watch is one thing, but a transformative trip or learning a new skill becomes part of who you are.
That connects beautifully to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Experiences can facilitate personal transformation and self-actualization at that highest level of need.
Precisely. Think about travel, attending a unique performance, even something seemingly simple like creating a beautiful garden. These aren't just purchases, they're activities that enrich life and contribute to personal growth.
And the data show the purchase incidence of these experiential luxuries like dining, entertainment, and travel really boomed around 2003.
Yeah, travel specifically is a huge priority for this consumer base. They're focusing on rest, relaxation, and creating those valuable memories.
It's about the story you get to tell afterwards, too.
Absolutely. Companies like Crystal Cruises are highlighted for understanding this, focusing on the spaciousness, the choices, the feeling of, deserving that luxury experience after working hard, as one ad analysis in the book pointed out. It's selling the feeling, the escape, the story.
Okay, so if they're buying experiences more than stuff, what kind of stuff are they still buying and how does spending break down?
Well, the 2003 averages in the source show experiential luxury, leading over $9,000 annually per household, which was significantly higher than home luxury, around $4,100, or personal luxury, like jewelry, watches, apparel, around $2,500.
And of course, the income segments spend very different amounts overall. Super affluents averaged over $22,000 in total luxury spending.
Compared to $9,000 for affluence and just under $5,000 for near affluence, it scales up, but everyone is participating to some degree.
Right.
The specific product examples from the book are really telling because they illustrate how companies are selling luxury in this new landscape. Take Sub-Zero Wolf in kitchen appliances.
High-end stuff.
Right, they're selling high performance, the marriage of fire and ice, and tapping into different emotional connections, the passive trust you have in your fridge, versus the active, almost primal engagement with cooking, where things like BTU power matter, especially to men, the source notes.
Interesting. And Sarah, fine linens. That sounds more traditional.
It is rooted in European tradition and handcrafted quality. It shows how a brand maintains that traditional luxury image through quality and pricing, but is also trying to adapt, creating items at different price points to reach that wider audience.
Without diluting the brand too much.
Exactly. It's that paradox of the title playing out. How do you let more people eat the cake without making the cake feel less special?
Then you have examples that redefine luxury entirely. Aerosols, comfortable shoes as luxury.
Yeah, positioning comfortable style is the ultimate luxury in shoes. Even using new tech in an upscale collection. That's luxury as relief, as practical indulgence. Not about flash, but about feeling good.
And Guthy-Renker in beauty, using direct channels like TV and online. How does that fit?
They blend science and beauty know-how, using celebrity endorsement for that initial hook, like Lisa Gibbons for sheer cover. But the real luxury relationship is built on product performance. Does it actually work? It's luxury based on results and a direct connection with the consumer.
Makes sense. Performance is key.
Then there's Matterhorn Nursery. That's a great example of luxury as experience and taste,
A garden center.
but positioned as an escape, offering unique plants, display gardens for knowledge and inspiration. The founder emphasizes luxury is about taste, not cost, and providing that enriching environment is the luxury.
And Dr. Paul Glatt talking about cosmetic surgery as a luxury. That's a big one.
It's framed not just as a procedure, but the luxury of looking good, the access to something that can significantly impact your self-perception
Yeah.
and how you interact with the world. It's luxury as self-improvement, as transformation, a very personal kind of luxury.
These examples really show the breadth, from appliances and linens to comfortable shoes, skincare, gardening, and even surgery. It's about hitting those emotional, experiential, or self-improvement needs.
Absolutely.
So with this diverse range of products and how are these companies handling pricing, promotion, and getting it into the hands of consumers? Because it feels less about just exclusivity now.
It is. The source makes a fascinating point about pricing for affluence. It has very little to do with money, in a simple cost-plus sense. Money takes on symbolic, meaning power, prestige, validation.
This is where you get the frugal affluent, right?
Yeah.
That concept feels like a total contradiction.
It does, but it's crucial. They appreciate value, they look for deals. Buying on impulse when something is marked down is definitely a behavior. They want a good value for their money, even if they have a lot of it.
So the price isn't just the price, it's part of the signal. If it's too cheap, maybe it can't be luxury. If it's too expensive, they might feel ripped off.
Exactly. They expect to pay more, but they still want that feeling of getting a bargain. Not necessarily a steal, but a smart buy.
The thrill of the hunt.
Exactly. The source argues the price is part of the experience, the satisfaction of getting value. The Riddell stemware example is perfect. The price isn't just for the glass itself, but for how it enhances the experience of drinking the wine. You're buying a better experience.
And promotion. Forget traditional stuffy ads.
Largely, yes. Traditional advertising is often less effective. People trust articles, stories, things that feel authentic, more than blatant ads.
Storytelling comes up as key here. Ralph Lauren is highlighted as a genius at creating lifestyle brands.
Absolutely. He creates these worlds, tells these stories, allowing consumers to buy into an aspiration, incorporate a desired world into their own lives. It's incredibly powerful.
And that Crystal Cruises ad showing luxury as something deserved through hard work that resonates with consumers who feel they've earned it, framing luxury as a reward, not just an entitlement.
Right, connects with that middle-class roots idea we talked about.
Interestingly, brand loyalty isn't always paramount. For most luxury categories, the source says the brand is only somewhat important.
Yeah, it's most important in highly technical categories like cars or watches, or highly personal ones like cosmetics, things where performance or intimate use is critical.
So the brand often acts as a what? A
Okay.
justifier?
Exactly, a justifier. It assures quality and signals that the higher price point is worth the investment, providing that internal reassurance for the frugal affluent or anyone questioning the splurge. It says, okay, this is worth it.
And making the consumer feel special seems universal across luxury sectors. That often comes down to personal interaction and service, right?
Yes, it's about building that connection.
Yep.
And the source points to concepts like luxury is doing good, using 10,000 villages as an example.
Fair trade goods.
Right. Selling handcrafted goods from developing countries, paying fair wages, telling the artisan's story, the customer feels good about the purchase's impact, adding a layer of meaning and ethics that becomes part of the luxury appeal. Luxury with a conscience.
Looking at retail, the source notes a big shift away from just traditional department stores. Growth has been strongest in other general retailers, mass merchandisers, warehouse clubs, and non-store retailers like the internet and TV shopping.
This is the democratization of luxury playing out in retail. Luxury concepts are expanding into smaller markets because higher incomes are more geographically dispersed now, and consumers everywhere are more sophisticated. You don't have to be in a major city anymore.
Department stores like Saks Fifth Avenue are still important, especially for luxury home goods and personal luxury, but the source suggests they need to really cater to these affluent customers better to stay relevant.
And Saks itself seems to get it, taking an expansive view, including traditional brands, but also experiences like in-store spas or cafes. But they also acknowledge a potential downside to this expansion. When everything is luxury, nothing is. That's the challenge of this let them eat cake world, isn't it?
It is. If everyone can have a piece of the cake, does it still taste as special? How do you maintain that feeling?
Exactly. And channels like online, the cooking.com example, and TV shopping like QVC thrive by leveraging storytelling, expertise, and building that trust and connection, often through hosts who feel like friends sharing knowledge. It's about personal connection, even at scale.
So, pulling back from all of this, the historical shift, the changing definition, who's buying, why, and how it's sold. What are the big takeaways from this deep dive into Let Them Eat Cake?
I think the core message is clear. Luxury has fundamentally shifted from the ownership of physical things to the pursuit of experiences and self-actualization. It's less about unattainable excess and more about accessible desires and finding personal meaning in purchases.
For marketers, the lessons are crucial. Focus on performance and delivering a wonderful use experience. That seems paramount.
Absolutely. And understand that consumers want individuality and personal specialness, not just exclusivity for its own sake. They want it to feel right for them.
Connect on an emotional level. It's beyond just brand awareness. It's building a relationship where the brand feels, for me, about me.
Right. And word of mouth is hugely important, driven by unique concepts and creating passionate customers, maybe through loyalty programs like Chico's or Ulta, which the book mentions.
Leverage technology like the internet, not just for sales, but for two-way communication and deeper storytelling. Build that community.
And understand that price isn't just a cost. It conveys meaning and is part of the overall experience and perception of value. It's part of the story.
Which brings us back to that challenge you mentioned, the Sachs quote, and the core paradox of the title's metaphor. If luxury is becoming more accessible, what happens to its specialness? The source calls this luxflation.
Yes, luxflation. As luxury moves down market and becomes more available, marketers face this constant challenge of needing to reach up and extend the bar of luxury higher. Always innovating, always redefining what's next.
To keep delivering something that feels truly extraordinary, to combat that downward pull of gravity toward the common and everydayness that occurs when something once rare becomes widespread.
It's about maintaining that magical allure, even as more people get a taste of the cake. It means the definition of extraordinary has to keep evolving. What was luxury yesterday might be standard today.
So this exploration of Let Them Eat Cake really reveals a luxury market that's much more dynamic, personal, and yes, accessible than the old stereotypes. It's about experiences, self-improvement, and finding meaning in what we buy and do.
We've seen how the definition is subjective, how demographics have changed, how motivations are similar across income levels, and how savvy companies are adapting their pricing, promotion, and retail strategies to connect with this new, broader luxury consumer. The phrase, let them eat cake, isn't a cruel dismissal here. It's almost an acknowledgement, perhaps even a celebration, of luxury reaching the masses, while also hinting at the ongoing effort needed to keep that cake feeling truly special.
What stands out to you from this exploration as a final thought?
Well, it makes you wonder if, as the source suggests, the ultimate luxury is the fantasy, the anticipation, and the memory surrounding a purchase or experience. Then, as luxury becomes more widespread, does the accessibility of previously exclusive goods diminish the power of that fantasy? Or does it simply shift where and how we seek those moments of anticipation and create our most luxurious memories? Maybe the cake just takes different forms now.
That's a fantastic thought to leave with. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.